There comes a moment when you realize your phone isn't just a habit anymore. It's a quiet pull shaping your thoughts, your desires, and even your time with God. You wake up scrolling. You get lost in distractions you never meant to seek, and your heart slowly drifts without you noticing. If you've felt this shift inside you, that subtle loss of control, stay with me. Naming the battle is often the first step toward healing. This isn't about shame, it's about finally understanding what has been stealing your attention. Peace and spiritual clarity. God reveals these wounds to heal, not to condemn. And before we continue, let me gently remind you, many women watch these videos without subscribing and end up walking this alone. If this speaks to your heart, subscribe now so you don't go back to the cycle he's trying to free you from. I wake up reaching for my phone before I even whisper a prayer. It's strange how something so small can take over so much of a woman's life. One scroll leads to another, and suddenly my attention is scattered, anxiety rising before the day even begins. I feel the burnout forming in the background, quiet but steady, pulling me away from the peace I know my heart desperately needs. At first, scrolling feels harmless, just catching up, just a moment. But soon it fills my mind with doubts and comparisons I never asked for. It steals the stillness I long for, the silence where God usually speaks most clearly. I remember the verse, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. And I can almost feel how far the noise has pushed me from that gentle certainty. Sometimes I laugh at myself, thinking this is just part of women's struggles today, but deep down I know it's shaping me more than I admit. Instead of redemption, I feed distraction. Instead of contrition, I slip into autopilot. The difficulties waiting in the day feel heavier when my soul starts already tangled. It's like I open a door to everyone else's voices before opening my heart to God. What troubles me most is how this habit affects my family. I'm with them, yet not fully present, my mind half lost in a world that offers attention but not peace. I crave a slower rhythm, a quiet center where I can breathe again, but scrolling pulls me away from that sacred stillness. I wonder how often I miss God's whisper because I'm too busy refreshing someone else's life. Still, even in this messy cycle, I sense God calling me gently back. No condemnation, just an invitation to return to Him. I close the apps, place the phone aside, and breathe a small prayer for strength. It's not perfect, and I'm not either, but maybe honesty is the first step toward redemption. The morning is just beginning, and so is the journey He'll lead me through next. As the morning goes on, scrolling pulls me into places I never meant to enter, images and videos that mix beauty with lust. It happens slowly, almost gently, and I barely notice how my attention drifts. But deep down, I feel the shift. It awakens desires that don't belong to the woman I want to be. It stirs restlessness, feeding doubts, and quietly reshaping the way I see myself in my marriage. It's frightening how lust disguises itself as curiosity. One click leads to another, and suddenly I'm lingering on things that stain the peace God tries to grow in me. My heart begins comparing, craving, imagining. These hidden passions create a distance between me and my husband, subtle at first, then painfully clear. I look at him differently, measuring him against illusions that were never meant to define love. Lust creates fantasies that promise escape from difficulties, but they steal more than they give. They make ordinary affection seem dull and real intimacy feel too slow. I sense how burnout grows from this double life pretending. I'm unaffected while my mind wanders where it shouldn't. Redemption feels far when I'm tangled in secret desires. Yet I know God sees every corner of my wandering heart. My husband notices the shift, though he's too kind to say it. He feels when I'm present in body but drifting in thought. Contrition rises in me like a heavy wave, because I know this wound didn't start with him. It started with my screen. Lust makes everything complicated, turning simple moments into tension, replacing tenderness with confusion, and pushing our family into a silence we don't deserve. Yet even here, God whispers gently. He doesn't shame me. He calls me to honesty. I breathe deeply, close the apps, and ask him to purify the places I've let lust grow. I want the kind of attention that leads to healing, not destruction. The morning feels different now, softer, as though he's preparing me for the next step. A step that will demand courage, truth, and the beginning of real change. I hate admitting this, but the more I let lust guide my scrolling, the easier it became to cross lines I never imagined crossing. One morning I found myself replying to a stranger online. It felt innocent at first, just attention, just curiosity, but something in me knew it wasn't. My heart fluttered in a way it shouldn't, stirring anxiety and a deep sense that I was stepping into dangerous territory. He said things my tired soul wanted to hear, words that sounded gentle and affirming. And for a moment, I let myself enjoy it. But soon shame followed, sharp and heavy. I felt the weight of doubts pressing on my chest. How did I get here? This wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal of the redemption God was trying to build in me. A wound forming silently inside my family. Talking to a stranger made me feel like I was living two lives, one visible, one hidden. The burnout of pretending nothing was wrong nearly crushed me. I'd sit beside my husband and feel sick inside, knowing my heart was drifting. Contrition rose like fire, and I wanted to run from myself. It's terrifying how a woman's life can unravel through a single thread pulled by temptation. Every message I sent felt like stepping further into a place I wasn't meant to be. I prayed in the quiet, begging God to pull me back before I destroyed something precious. I kept remembering the verse, "Create in me a clean heart, O God," Psalm 51:10. My soul ached for that cleansing, for a chance to turn around before the consequences grew deeper than I could bear. Eventually, I stopped responding, not because the temptation disappeared, but because God's whisper became louder than my desires. The shame I carried became a door to honesty instead of hiding. I deleted the messages, breathed slowly, and asked for forgiveness with trembling humility. The stranger was gone, but the lesson remained, and as the day unfolded, I realized I needed to confront the deeper emptiness that led me there. To my surprise, I finally managed to keep the phone away during the daytime. At first, it felt impossible, but once I placed it in another room and walked away, something inside me settled. The anxiety didn't vanish, but it softened. I realized how much space the screen had taken from my woman's life space I desperately needed to reclaim. Every hour without it felt like a small redemption unfolding quietly. With the phone out of reach, my attention slowly returned to things I'd ignored. The sound of my home, the rhythm of my family, the gentle nudge of God calling me toward stillness. I noticed the difficulties I used to escape, but instead of running, I faced them with clearer eyes. Contrition washed over me as I recognized how much lust and distraction had distorted my heart. Yet hope rose beside it. The silence became strangely comforting. Without endless scrolling, I felt my mind breathe again. Thoughts stopped racing. Burnout eased. Even my doubts felt different, less cruel. I found myself whispering short prayers throughout the day, not because I had to, but because the space created by putting the phone away made room for God to speak softly, guiding me back to who I was becoming. My husband noticed the change. I was presenterly present for the first time in a long while. Conversations felt warmer, laughter came easier, and the tension that lust had planted slowly melted. I sensed God stitching our family back together in small, tender ways. Each moment of honesty felt like a step away from destruction and a step toward the redemption I had begged for in my darkest nights. Still, I know this victory is fragile. Temptation doesn't disappear just because the phone is in another room. But each day I resist. My heart grows steadier. I'm learning that freedom is a daily choice, not a single breakthrough. And as the afternoon light fills my home, I sense that God is preparing me for a deeper layer of healing, something waiting just beyond the next morning. As I kept the phone away, a new desire formed in me to reshape my habits instead of just resisting them. I realized I didn't need to quit the online world. I just needed to redeem the way I used it. So I began curating what my eyes consumed. Little by little, I replaced the noise with Christian content that softened my heart instead of stirring lust, doubts, or anxiety. It felt like opening the windows of my soul. I followed voices that spoke truth, healing, and scripture. I searched for teachings that calmed my mind rather than feeding burnout or confusion. Suddenly, my mornings were filled with verses, prayers, and reflections that anchored me in something real. The difficulties in my woman's life didn't disappear, but they felt lighter. I sensed God reshaping my attention, redirecting me toward a path where redemption could finally grow. This shift surprised me. The same device that once dragged me into temptation now became a tool for grace. Family devotionals, testimonies of other women's struggles, gentle reminders to pray, these began to fill my feed. Contrition lingered, but in a healing way, not a crushing one. I felt God turning my digital space into an altar, a place where my heart could breathe and come back to Him again and again. Even my husband noticed the difference. Instead of withdrawing into fantasy, I shared things I learned, scriptures that moved me, stories that encouraged me. Our conversations deepened. I felt present, honest, and grounded. Lust lost its grip as I filled my mind with light instead of shadows. This new focus didn't erase my weaknesses, but it gave me strength to face them with humility. Rebuilding habits took patience, but the transformation felt real. My soul grew quieter, steadier, less entangled in the digital traps that once consumed me. And as I leaned into Christian content, I sensed God preparing me for the next step, something deeper than screens or habits, something about the hidden desires of my heart. The journey wasn't over. It was only shifting into a more honest and sacred phase.